Welcome to the first of our 2021 webinar series about moving to Spain. Well, the pandemic has delayed many people's move to Spain, and with Brexit transition period ending on the 31st of December, we're now in a position where Brits are subject to new and, I'm afraid, more onerous rules. We're joined by Alex Radford, founding partner of My Lawyer in Spain, who will help us to understand these new rules. Now, many of you are clearly planning well in advance, because from the registration data we collected, around 40% of you plan to move in 2021, and hopefully travel will permit that. 31% not planning to move until 2022, with the balance after that. One registrant has actually said that they're planning to move in 2045, which I think is probably a fairly extreme level of forward planning, either that or it's a typo. But whenever you're planning to move, Alex is here to help you to understand the requirements. Before we get started, just like to mention that you can send in questions to us. There's a Q&A facility on your screen, and we'll answer those at the end. And if we don't get to any of them, then we'll follow up after the event. You can also contact us with any comments, suggestions, or other questions that come up to you after the event through the email expats@expatnetwork.com. This webinar is followed by one about financial issues, what you need to consider before you move to Spain, and that is something that it is important to understand what you need to do before you move, because once you get to Spain and become tax resident, there can be liabilities that could have been avoided if you dealt with them before leaving the UK. So those of you who plan to join that, we'll see you on that one. And those of you who have not registered for it, you can still join it by clicking on the link in the reminder email that we sent you. And then that will be followed by one on property, which we tend to want to look at what you can do now, so that when you do move across, or when you do come to view properties, you can hit the ground running. Those are separate webinars, so you will need to log into them individually. So, Alex, perhaps we could start, if you could start by telling us a bit about yourself and about My Lawyer in Spain.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And thank you very much, Nigel, for organising the virtual roadshow. I'm really delighted to be on board. I think it's very exciting times for people who are thinking about moving to Spain. It's a big move, setting up in the UK, moving to Spain, new country, new house. And we're here to guide you. So I'm an English solicitor and a Spanish lawyer. My parents moved to Spain in 1981. Spain wasn't a member of the EU then. They joined in 1985. I grew up in Spain. I went to an English school to start with. My parents saw that I wasn't learning any Spanish. They put me in a Spanish school. It was fluent in about 6 months, and I followed the Spanish system through and returned to the UK in 92 to study law with European legal systems. And then after graduating from university, the University of East Anglia in Norwich, I spent some time traveling, working with Nationwide to pay off the overdraft, and I did my legal practice course in Oxford and started practicing as a lawyer in 1999 in Exeter. And then as a fluent bilingual Spanish speaker, lots of clients were contacting me about Spanish related matters. We acted for clients then at the law firm for mainly personal injury matters, but that practice then grew and people started to contact me about buying, selling and inheriting property. So I then made the move back out to Spain in 2003 and qualified as a Spanish lawyer. And so I'm now dual qualified, and we act for British clients or English speaking clients, buying, selling, inheriting property in Spain and doing business across Spain as well. My Lawyer in Spain, we set that up 6 years ago, and we have offices located throughout Spain. So head office is in Marbella, where most of the legal work is carried out, and then we use our local partners to assist with completions or to meet clients. So we've got offices in Almeria, in Murcia, in La Zenia, in Alicante, Costa Blanca area. We've got an office in Valencia, Mallorca, Tenerife, Bilbao, and Madrid. So we wherever you are in Spain, and us Brits get everywhere, Nigel, we've got someone on the ground to hold your hand if you need that.
Okay, many thanks. So what we've done is prepared a few sort of points that we're going to sort of go through. And I think if we sort of start off on the sort of short stay side of things, now that UK is no longer a member of the EU, do Brits need a visa to visit Spain, and how long can they stay if they don't have residence?
So if you haven't got a residency card, then you can come to Spain as with a British passport, and you can stay for a period of 90 days in a 180-day period. And our experience of British people coming here on holiday at the moment is that when you do come to Spain, the passports are being stamped. Those people who reside here, they're not having their passport stamped. So in effect, British people without residency, 90 days in a 180-day period.
Okay, and so how does that 90 and 100 days work? Is that a sort of fixed period of 90 days and then you can't come for 90, or is it a rolling?
Yeah, so the Spanish taxman considers the 90 days as actually 90 nights. So if you sleep in Spain, that's considered a full day. So once you've spent 90 days in a 180-day period in Spain, then you've got to leave. If you don't, then you'd be in Spain illegally. Okay,
but in that 90 days, so it's not a matter of going 90 days in one block. You can do any period, but you have to, am I right in saying, look back 180 days and not have been here for 90 days in that 180 day period?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And so do people need to get, I mean, these are Schengen rules, or these are rules. Do people need to get a visa, or is it simply a matter of,
no, if they're happy with you just to spend 90 days and 180 days in Spain or across Europe, then they don't need a visa at all. They just use their passport and come into Europe. Yeah.
Okay, so now if people want to look at staying on a longer period, what are people's options if they want to stay for more than 90 days? So if we look at the different reasons for it, if people want to work in Spain, can they apply for a work visa, and how does that work? What are the terms?
Well, that has become a lot more complicated. So the kind of the general options at the moment, the most popular options are what we call the non-lucrative visa, and then the golden visa. The non-lucrative visa is a visa you both of these visas. Well, the non-lucrative visa you apply for from the Spanish consul in the UK. We can help you with that application process. And you're not allowed to work. So that's basically for people intending to live in Spain, to reside in Spain, but not to work. The golden visa can be applied for either in Spain or at the Spanish consulate in the UK or your home country. And that's basically, you've got to invest in a property or properties of at least €500,000 with no debts or mortgages on that. And then you can apply for that golden visa. So those are the two most popular visas, Nigel. I know we'll come back to those. If someone wanted to work, then they can work on the golden visa. But if they just wanted to come out because they wanted to kind of try their luck in Spain, then in effect they've got to apply to the Spanish consul in the UK for a working visa, and they've got to put together a business plan of what they propose to do, how many people they intend to employ, if they intend to employ anyone, and how much money they're going to invest in that business. So in effect, we can help them with that application process. We can help them put the business plan together. We're working with firms of accountants across the country to prepare those business plans, and they submit that. And then the Spanish consul is typically taking between 1 and 3 months to basically process the visas. And I'd say it takes about between 1 and 2 months to collate the documents. So obviously, last year British people could come out to Spain, and they liked a bar that was up for sale. They could buy the bar and run the bar. That they can't do that now. Now they actually have to put together a business plan and apply for a working visa from the UK.
Right. And if they're looking to be employed over here, then it's the employer who has to make the move, is it?
That's right. Yeah. So again, that becomes a little bit more complicated because the employer has to advertise that position with the local employment office. known locally as the INEM, INEM, and that employment office will, basically a job centre, will send them suitable candidates for that position. And so you've got to advertise that position locally first, and then if you don't receive any local applications from anyone in Spain, then you can go outside of Spain. So the employment process just becomes a bit more complicated there. I think it'd be easier for British teachers wanting to work in British schools. So teachers coming out to teach key skills and specialist skills. But yeah, it becomes more difficult. We're acting for companies at the moment who want to send employees out to do some work in Spain, and they need visas as well.
Okay. Perhaps we could go into the non-lucrative visa a little bit in more detail. So how do people prove that they have the necessary funds and the financial means to support themselves and their spouse, partner, and maybe other dependents? What are the requirements there?
Okay, so basically, the main applicant has to have income or money in a bank account or a fund or a pension fund, etc., of 27,115 euros. Okay, and each dependent has to have 1,778 euros. So again, those financial requirements were less last year, so more this year. So a family of four, you're looking at basically, I think we worked out as 37,000 euros per person. So for the family of four.
Right, and it's that needs to be in a bank account in the UK, in Spain, or what?
Yes. Yeah, that needs to be in a bank account in the UK, or a bank account in Spain. It can, as long as they can show that income. And the non-lucrative visa, so again, we take 1 or 2 months to collate the documents. Quite importantly, we have to obtain a criminal record certificate, proving that the applicants haven't got any criminal records. Secondly, we need a medical certificate, which has to confirm that they don't suffer from any World Health Organization diseases such as Ebola or some other nasty diseases. Doctor signs off on that, and then a married couple, they would need a duplicate marriage certificate, and they submit that documentation with the application fee to the Spanish consul, and the Spanish consul will take up to 3 months to respond and grant the visa. Once the visa has been granted, then the applicant is notified. Each applicant has to apply in person. The non-lucrative visa, again, you're not allowed to work in Spain. So if you did say that you're going to work in Spain, that visa would be denied. So you pay the application fee for each applicant is £516, and then basically when the visa is granted, you pay £10 for that. And once it's granted, you've got to collect the visa within a period of 1 month. Okay, and then you've got 3 months and 15 days to come to Spain. So you receive the visa on your passport. You come to Spain, and you've got 3 months and 15 days to come to Spain. And when you arrive in Spain, Nigel, you've got to apply for what's known as the TIE card, which is basically the foreigner's identification number, the foreigner's identification card, which is my card, which I've got here. Nice photographic card, and it basically has got my NI number on it, which is my Spanish tax number. It's got my address, date of birth, and it's got a special number confirming my my TIE number. And that card means that I don't have to carry a British passport around. And that basically, for the first year, that will be granted for a year. And then after that first year, you have to renew it. And the renewal is for 2 years. And you can renew that from Spain. So you don't have to go back to the UK for that. And when you come to renew, the amounts that I quoted earlier, they're basically talking 27,115 euros for the main applicant and 6,778 euros for each dependent. is multiplied by 2. So you've got to prove that you've got that money in your bank account. And of course, Spain also wants to see that you've got private medical insurance in place. And so in effect, you apply for a non-lucrative visa for 1 year, then it's renewed for 2 years, and then it's renewed for a further 2 years. And at year 5, so long as you haven't spent 180 days out of Spain, then the visa is renewed. So you've got to spend a minimum of 180 days in Spain for that visa to be renewed. And after year 5, then you can apply for the long-term residence. But during that period, you've got to keep the private medical insurance in place. Or what you could do is, after year 1, being registered on the Padron, which is the census at local town hall, you can join what's known as the Convenio Especial, which is basically you access the Spanish healthcare system, and you pay, each applicant would pay typically about €60 a month for that.
Right. Okay, Alex, one question here. In terms of the non-lucrative visa, you can take your children and dependents. Who can qualify for that? Can parents be included on the visa? What about adopted children and issues like that?
Yeah, exactly. So long as they've got the financial resources and in place, they've got medical insurance, etc. Yeah, anyone over the age of 18 can apply for that. And of course, if you're coming out with a family, then and your dependents, the age 18 under, then they would qualify as well. If you wanted to bring elderly parents, then you'd have to prove that they were dependent on you or any other relatives. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question here from Philip saying, how does the non-lucrative visa work with the Schengen 90-day restriction? So his question basically is, if you're spending time in Spain, do you still have 90 days in the other Schengen countries, or is that?
Yes, exactly. So once you've got your non-lucrative visa, then yes, you've got 90 days to visit the other countries. Yeah.
Okay.
Other European countries. Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to the golden visa.
Yeah.
Perhaps focusing on the property option. I know there are. You could explain. There's a range of investments, but a number of those are.
Yeah.
Quite high value requirements. Can you explain how the property investment arrangements work?
Yeah. So quite important here, Nigel, to bear in mind that the golden visa is actually 2 visas. It's the same concept, but it's just for ease of figures and facts. It's commonly known as the golden visa because you buy a property or properties worth €500,000 or more. If you apply for that visa from the UK, then it's known as a residency visa for investors, and it's granted for 1 year. If you apply for it from Spain, it's known as the initial authorization for investors visa, and it's granted for 2 years. And the application costs are much greater if you apply for it for the Spanish consul compared to applying for it in Spain. So I would certainly recommend that you apply for the golden visa, the initial authorization for investors visa from Spain, because you're going to get it for 2 years rather than just 1 year. And yes, part of that application process is that you've got to prove that you've purchased property or properties worth €500,000 or more. For those of you who may have purchased a property after September 2013, then you can still apply for that golden visa so long as that property has a value of more than €500,000. Ideally, that €500,000 would be the purchase price that you paid for it from September 2013 onwards.
And what about renovation costs? If you've bought somewhere and then you spend money on renovation, does that count?
You'd have to. Yeah, we've had similar questions from some of our clients about this. I think you've got to prove that you've spent €500,000 on the whole project. So we would need official invoices from architects, builders, etc., confirming that you've spent that money. And of course, none of that money can be, the property cannot be subject to a mortgage. One thing to add here, as opposed to the non-lucrative visa, under the golden visa, you can actually work in Spain. Okay, and there's not a minimum period for renewal. So the golden visa, you can spend 1 day in Spain and it can still be renewed, whereas the non-lucrative visa, you've got to be in Spain for at least 180 days for it to be renewed.
And they can take dependent children and relatives in the same way as the
Exactly. So the financial requirements are the same. 27,115 euros for the main applicant, 6,778 euros for dependents, and that again. So you apply initially for 2 years from Spain, and then it's renewed every 2 years, and then on the third renewal, in effect, you can apply for the long-term residency visa.
Right. Okay, so then talking about residence, you have sort of temporary residence and permanent residence. Can you explain what the rules are and how that works?
So someone on the non-lucrative, well, I suppose it comes back to taxes. If you spend more than 183 days in Spain, then you pay tax in Spain on worldwide assets. And the tax year in Spain runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. So I think it's important to plan your move carefully, because if you sell your main residence in the UK and move to Spain, and you've made a gain in the UK. In the UK, when you sell your main residence, that's not subject to capital gains, whereas in Spain it could be. So it's important that you carefully consider when to come to Spain and plan that move. So for example, if you move to Spain in August, then obviously you're not going to spend 183 days in 2021 this year, so you wouldn't be considered a Spanish tax resident. So you wouldn't pay tax in Spain this year. But next year, in 2022, if you spent more than 183 days, then you would then declare that in 2023. So the tax year runs from January to December, and we always submit our tax returns in Spain as people as kind of residents between April and June the year after the full tax year. So that's quite important to bear in mind. People spending less than 183 days, Nigel, basically, non-lucrative visa, spend 180 days here. They've got their non-lucrative visa. They don't want to go over and become a tax resident, so they've got to keep a careful track of the nights that they spend in Spain to avoid being treated as a tax resident. But yeah, those that spend less than 183 days are considered non-residents. So non-tax residents, and if they own a property, then they would pay what's known as the non-residence income tax on an annual basis, and they pay that the year after purchase. So if someone buys a property this year and they're a non-resident, then next year they would pay the non-residence income tax. If they became a resident next year, i.e. spending more than 183 days, then they submit that tax return in 2023 for 2022. So that's quite important. And then one of the kind of stings in the tail, it's not too bad, but as a result of Brexit, so Spain treats British people now as non-Europeans, and the non-residence income tax, the applicable rate for non-Europeans is 24%. So if someone buys a property and rents it out, they pay tax in Spain on that rental income of 24%, and no costs of the rental, such as management costs, insurance, water, marketing, etc. Those costs aren't a deductible expense, whereas last year they were. So last year the tax payable was 19%. This year, as non-Europeans, it's 24%.
So coming on to the TIE card. So people get their visa, be it a non-lucrative or a golden visa. They then come over to this country. The application for that TIE card, is that something they have to be in Spain for, or?
Yeah. So they have to collect their visa within a month of being notified to do so, and then they come into Spain, and then within a month of being in Spain, they have to apply for their TIE card. So the card I mentioned earlier, photographic card, and again, we can help clients through that process. We set up a specialist website called www.getspanishresidency.com to assist clients with this process. And we've got full-time staff just dedicated to dealing with residencies at the moment. So yeah, they come into Spain, they register on the Padron, which is the census, and then we would accompany them to the local police station to present the application. Well, actually, the application can be submitted online. The application is submitted online, then we would accompany them to either have to drop off their the colour photo that's going to go on the TIE card, and have their fingerprints taken, and then literally 2 or 3 months later, they would go and collect their TIE card.
And how can people who have those visas qualify for permanent residence in Spain? So
basically, Nigel, anyone spending more than 183 days here would be considered, a tax resident. They live here for 5 years, and then they can apply for their full-term residency, and they don't have to go through these biannual or annual renewals.
Okay.
So after 5 years.
Okay, thanks for that. Then perhaps you could explain the Padron. People will have heard of the need to be on the Padron. Could you explain how that works, what it is, and so on?
Yeah, certainly. So basically, each town hall has a local census. So you can go if you bought a property or you're renting a property. You take your rental contract, a copy of the deeds down to the town hall with your NIE number, which is your Spanish tax number, copies of your passports, and you ask them to go on the Padron, which is the census. They add you to the census, which is in the interest of the town hall, because that means more people on the census, means they get more money from central government, and the figures are quite astounding. Really, say 1,000 extra people on the census means they get an extra fire truck or policeman or an extra refuse lorry. So it's very important when you're living here now to register on the census. You can also register to vote in local elections, and you'll be granted what's known as a certificado de empadronamiento, which basically means that you are then registered on the census. And lots of town halls nowadays, they're using digital certificates. So you could actually, if you've got a digital certificate, then you can apply for it online. If you haven't, then you just go down in person and get it.
Okay, thanks then. We've had a number of questions coming in, so perhaps if we can sort of work our way through those, Alex.
Yeah.
So the first one from Steve: if you apply for a non-lucrative visa as a couple, what papers do you need to have for your wife? Does she get a visa stamp in her passport? So
remember, for the non-lucrative visa, it's very important. Each applicant has to submit an application. So part of the process, if you're married, if it's a married couple, you've got to provide a duplicate copy of your marriage certificate. Okay, but as I said, have a look on our website, getspanishresidency.com, and in the news section, and you've got all the requirements that are necessary for that visa process. And something that keeps on cropping up, Nigel, is that if we've got clients who, for example, have got an Irish passport or a Maltese passport and they're married, then basically that they're quite lucky, because the EU nationals can actually come to Spain, apply for residency based on the old rules, which aren't the financial requirements are not as tough. Typically, say if an Irish citizen was moving to Spain, they need to prove they had income of, say, 850 in the bank account, so income coming in of 850, and they'd have say monies in of about 9,000 euros, depending on the region where they intend to reside in. And then on that basis, they'd be granted residency. And if they're married, or married before they submit the application, of course, then their spouse, who might be a British national, can benefit and piggyback off that residency. And they wouldn't have to apply for the non-lucrative or the golden visa.
And so, just quickly on that question about the stamp in the passport, is there actually a stamp placed in the car park, passport, car park?
Yeah.
Passport.
So yeah, so the non-lucrative visa, people apply to the Spanish consul, and they will receive a stamp in their passport. Yeah. So it's basically, yeah, it's a stamp. It's like a sticker that goes into the passport, and then when they come to Spain, that gets stamped as well.
Okay. And the question here, I said, I think you covered this, but just to clarify, it says, what is the cost for a non-lucrative visa? Is it per person or for a couple? So it's,
yeah. So basically, the non-lucrative visa, the application fee from the Spanish consul is £516. That's payable on the day, and then £10 for the visa. And we basically are charging €1,495 for the main applicant, and then €495 for each dependent. And that means we will help clients apply for the non-lucrative visa or the golden visa, and then when they come to Spain, we'll assist them with the TIE card.
Okay. Now, I've got a question here, which is, what about if I wanted to retire in Spain before the statutory retirement age? And I think the answer there is that the non-lucrative visa is not to do with your age; it's to do with you not earning any income. That's correct, it's not.
Well, the non-lucrative visa basically means any British person who wants to retire to Spain now will need a non-lucrative visa.
Right. So. So the question there, I think we answered, but can I travel to Spain and apply for residencia while there so I could remain?
Well, what you can do, see, and it's all about timing now. Again, the non-lucrative visa or the gold visa, the golden visa you can apply for from here. So you buy a property more than 500,000, we can apply for it here. But you've got to complete the property purchase and submit the visa application here within 90 days. The non-lucrative visa has to be applied for from the UK. So it's going to, again, contact us and we can talk you through the timings of when to submit the documents and when to prepare. But by and large, it takes 1 or 2 months to collate the documents, and then the Spanish embassy is taking 1 to 3 months to process the visas. So I'd allow, Nigel, 6 months for the overall process.
Right. Okay, then this one, do I need a fixed address in Spain to obtain the non-lucrative visa? Therefore, do I need to agree rental agreement or purchase property before I get the visa? So the answer there is obviously you've got to apply from the UK, so the property is a separate issue later. Is that correct?
Well, you do need a Spanish address, so you can, if you're planning to rent, then you can enter into a rental contract with a future date. So we know agents and owners who are entering into those types of arrangements. So yeah, so you need a Spanish address and you'll need a UK address as well.
Right. So this one, if I'm moving with children that no longer have contact with their father, do I need permission? That's a rather separate custody issue, presumably.
Yeah, I'd recommend they talk to their local lawyer about that, because if there's no contact with the father, then they may not require. Yeah, usually permission would be required to take children outside of the UK, right, especially to live. Yeah.
Okay, and this one here it says at the 5-year renewal, it's the 180 days out of Spain over the total 5-year period, or 180 days per annum. I guess the question here is, if you're longer in some years and shorter in others, what's the position there?
In effect, for the renewal of the non-lucrative visa, you've got to prove that you've been in Spain for at least 180 days in that year.
Right. I think this is talking about the 5-year. 5 years, so presumably that's talking about going on to permanent residence.
Yeah. So as long as you can prove that you've had the private medical insurance in place for 5 years, or after a year you went on to the convenio especial, you've kept your investment if it's a property over 500k, or you live here and you've lived here legally, with no criminal record, etc. Then after 5 years, then you can apply for long-term residents
here. Right. Okay. The question here, which again is the 27,000 per year one-off. I think to clarify that, you have to show that you have that income of 27,000 each year. It's not a sort of one-off. You need to be able to show it. What happens in terms of once you've got the visa? Do you have to continue to show it to prove that you've still got that 27,000 income?
Well, yeah, because in effect, after year one, you've then got to prove that you've got twice that amount in the bank account. So we are submitting bank statements to the Spanish consul, proving that the applicants have got those funds in place.
Right. So somebody here would just likes to repeat the non-lucrative visa financial requirements. So could you just run through very quickly the
Certainly. So the main applicant has to have 27,115 euros in a bank account. The good news is the pound is going up, so that's actually less pounds now. And then each dependent is 6,778 euros.
Right. Somebody here is planning to retire to Spain, but feels that they may want to start a business in the future once they have got here. How easy, or is it possible for them to change the type of visa once they've already moved over here?
Yeah, that can be done, Nigel. So first of all, if anyone applies for non-lucrative visa and mentions to the Spanish consul or mentions that they're going to be working in Spain, then the visa will be denied because it's a non-lucrative visa. So I'd suggest applying for the non-lucrative visa, and then if you see a business opportunity here, then you'd apply modification to that non-lucrative visa, and you've got to present the business plan that I talked about earlier to the Spanish consul, and they'd have to approve that.
Okay. And then a question here, is the non-resident income tax charged on property that you have for your own use and not rented out, or is it only on?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The non-resident income tax is basically a tax on purely owning property, and it's a percentage of the catastral value, which is the taxable value of the property. When we prepare our legal reports for clients who buy property in Spain, we prepare the non-residence income tax calculation of how much each person would pay based on the taxable value. So we set that in our legal report. It's hundreds of euros rather than thousands. So it's nothing really too much to worry about, but it has got to be submitted on an annual basis the year after purchase. And for example, if you bought in August this year, the next year you would submit a proportional tax return from August to December for that tax.
Right. Okay, a question here is, so, I mean, I think unfortunately the answer is clear, but if you only have a British state pension, so I gather it's about 10,000 a year, you're therefore not able to move to Spain. And I think that's actually, unfortunately, the case. One thing that's worth mentioning perhaps is that if you are looking for the son, the Portuguese equivalent of the non-lucrative visa, the passive income visa, has a rather lower threshold. I know you don't deal with Portugal, but did you have anything to add there, Alex?
No, I mean, we have heard rumours that, for example, on the golden visa side, the amounts might come down. The rumours that it might come down to 250,000 euros. I haven't seen anything concrete about that yet. The financial requirements are much higher than they were last year, unfortunately, mainly because governments work on a basis of reciprocity. So that's a reciprocal basis. So that if the UK says to Spain, any Spaniards going into the UK, look, you need to show that you've got an employment contract with income of say £25,000. Spain's going to say, look, if you're a British person who wants to go into Spain, you've got to prove that you've got income of that amount as well. So I think the UK set the bar on that one, and I can't see any lessening of that for the moment. What we might see, Nigel, is that obviously the governments at the moment are very focused on dealing with the pandemic, So they're not looking at these visa requirements, but as much, and they're not under the spotlight as much as they perhaps would be if eyes weren't diverted elsewhere for obvious reasons. So I know Spaniards going to the UK don't have to apply for a visa if they spend up to 183 days there. So they can spend that all in one go. Whereas for Brits at the moment, we've only got 90 days in a 180-day period in Spain, then we've got to leave. So I'm hoping that we will see some lessening of the rules, but obviously that's wait and see.
Question here, which is actually similar to a question that I received from somebody visiting the website recently. If you have large cash reserves or large assets and so on, but an income below the required threshold, is that acceptable?
Yes, yeah, that is acceptable. You've got to prove that you've got sufficient financial means to live in Spain, and at the moment it's 27,115 for that main applicant. So if they've got a bank statement where they can prove that they've got those monies there, that would be sufficient.
But if it was in say stocks and shares, would that be sufficient?
I would have thought so, yeah.
Okay. So I've got one here. I'm wondering if the current COVID restrictions on travel and the purchase of a property in Spain will be taken into account for anyone in the middle of negotiating a purchase, as the deadline for expats to register by the 31st of December fell into lockdown period, preventing any such visits and subsequent purchase. I'm not certain.
No, there's been no relaxation of the rules as a result of COVID.
No. Okay. So, okay, well, I think that covers most of the questions. There are certainly some that I haven't covered, but I'll work our way through those and either pass them on to Alex to respond to, or we will respond to them after the event to make sure that all of those questions have been covered. So thank you very much, Alex. If anybody wants to contact Alex, you can get hold of him through his website on mylawyerinspain.com, or please just send us an email on expats@expatnetwork.com, and we'll pass any questions on. So thank you very much. Very helpful, Alex. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye, everybody.